Good morning, folks. This is John Cogan. I'm the CEO of Performative, the online resource and community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. First, I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Reimagining Business Analytics to Drive Business Transformation. Today's webinar features the CIO of Pabst Brewing Company, who will discuss how they are approaching their business transformation, which encompasses moving from a manufacturing company to a sales and marketing company, and how they are leveraging technology to shorten the roadmap of this transformation.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, web events made easy.
Cost, just like all events on Performative, whether live or online. So a great thanks to Tidemark. Next, I'd like to say a few words about today's presentation. I linked to today's presentation and into the video and recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event, and they will be posted at performative.com/resources. Next up, we have a number of folks on the line today who are also going to be receiving CPE credits. In order to accommodate those credits, and that's for the CPAs in the audience, we will be asking 3 polling questions during today's event. In order to receive your CPE credit, you have to answer all 3 polling questions. Now, these questions are statistical in nature, as it happens, so we'd appreciate if everyone would answer these questions. They're very simple, taking 10, 15 seconds tops, and we will share the responses towards the end of today's event. And then you'll get to see where everyone sits vis-a-vis these questions. Please, speaking of questions, please ask questions. If you'll take a moment to glance at your GoToWebinar control panel, you will see there's a little portion of the control panel entitled Questions. You can ask your question there at any time. We will hold questions for the panelists until the end of today's webinar, but please feel free to ask anytime they strike you, and we will do our best to get to them during today's presentation. Finally, when we are done this morning, you will be asked to take a short survey. We appreciate your feedback. We always want to do better the next time, and these survey responses are a key part of that. We always want to be improving what we offer all of our users. So we'd appreciate that. Plus, in that survey, we make it very simple, just a click of a mouse, for you to request being connected with either of today's speakers. So please feel free to request that connection. We're happy to make that connection via email. Also, if you'd like to speak to the sponsors, it is simply a click of a mouse away during that post-event survey, and that will take about 60 seconds. So we'd appreciate you taking that minute. That would be wonderful and very helpful for us. Thank you so much. Next up, just a very quick welcome to Performative. To anyone for whom this is your first Performative event, we're the largest and fastest growing online community of corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. And what we like to do is have peers and subject matter experts help practitioners. That's part of what we're doing today with this educational program. That's what we do online in a completely noise-free arena. There's no selling, there's no self-promotion. It's peers and subject matter experts helping other peers. It's a wonderful thing, and it's all free. Please check us out at performative.com if you haven't already. We have a number of learning objectives for today's event. We certainly want to help CFOs and CIOs working together to help understand one another's requirements to deliver the business transformation and growth that they're both tasked with. We are looking forward to hearing today from the real world and also from a subject matter expert about formulating strategies to get more business users involved in financial and business planning so that that can be done more easily, more quickly, more effectively at your company. And of course, help you understand how you can leverage business analytics across your enterprise to help your company perform better. And at the end of the day, that's what we are all very much interested in figuring out. And to get us started on that path, it's my pleasure to introduce Ben Haim. Ben is the Chief Information Officer of Pabst Brewing Company. As CIO for the Iconic Pabst Brewing Company, Ben is responsible for overall IT strategy and execution. Keeping a very close eye on emerging technology and the changing technology landscape, Ben is determined to ensure that IT is innovating and providing business value in the most effective and efficient way possible. Prior to joining Pabst, Ben spent 9 years with Red Bull, leading teams across Asia Pac, Europe, and the Americas. With a grounding in IT hardware and service delivery, he quickly moved into the application and business intelligence space, delivering BI solutions, multiple mobile applications, a global portal, and a collaboration platform. Ben, we're really happy to have you with us here today. Thanks so much for joining. And at this point, I'll ask that you please take it away.
Thank you, John, and welcome everyone to the webinar. Let's jump straight into the agenda here. So I'll give you a quick overview of Pabst change and how we're looking at change. Things are moving at a very fast rate in business, and IT needs to be keeping up. Performance management is a topic for every business, and I'll talk a little bit about how we're improving the overview of performance management and adding value to the business. The transformation that we're undertaking at Pabst is rather huge, and we have some very good examples of where we're moving quickly and getting on with business and adding value, and a few lessons learned and where we're coming from. So a quick overview of the industry. The beer industry is rather large in the US, and we've got two very big 800-pound gorillas with Miller Coors and Anheuser-Busch. And then there's this little other 15.8%, which is all the other craft brewers are very popular at the moment. And Pabst is a roughly 2.9% share. So, we're small in the big picture here. And we have to think a bit differently about how we do things. We won't have the resources that a Miller or AB will have, and we are definitely thinking differently and looking at different tools. One of our biggest advantages is our size, and we can move a lot quicker. We're not stuck with a lot of legacy, and we have a very, very open and entrepreneurial ownership group that's keen to move things forward. So we're using our agility to our advantage. We're using a lot of cloud solutions to help us move things along quickly. So Pabst was started back in 1848. The actual first beer was 1844, so we're kind of like a 168-year-old startup. That's how we approach things at the moment. Great history. Back in the day, Pabst was one of the largest brewers in America, and over the years we've slowly moved out of the brewing business, and they sold, must have been 20 years ago, sold all the breweries to Miller Coors actually, and we contract brew most of our beer now with Miller. And we focus on sales and marketing and distribution. We distribute through roughly 600 distributors. We're not allowed to sell direct in the alcohol business. And we have the network of 600 distributors, Miller Coors, and a sales and marketing team internally. We have roughly 35 brands and some very, very well-known and popular brands like Schlitz, Colt 45, Old Milwaukee, Lone Star, and of course our flagship is PBR. So looking at change, and over the last 150 odd years things have changed a lot, and you see just in the marketing we used to do, and I think some of the marketing that used to happen probably couldn't happen now with some of the messaging I've seen. But we're moving from the traditional space of marketing and traditional messaging into the new age of social, and the brands are looking a lot different. It's very hipster. We're very we're happening, and it's things are changing, and we have to be changing as a business as well. The consumer wants things quicker, business wants to grow faster, and we can't be doing things the old way in the IT or finance like we used to in advertising. So, changes here, and we're moving very quickly. So if you have a look at the role IT plays, and its performance and overall company performance, but we have to be providing solutions. And I think this message has been forgotten a lot by IT professionals, and we're ground in providing buying the best servers and spending all our capital and making all the lights work nicely and making sure everything's on, and then we walk away. The focus has to be on providing solutions to our business customers and helping them move things forward. And these days it's not about the service you buy, it's about the solutions you deliver. And we're moving very quickly with cloud solutions to that space and changing the conversation around how much capital do we need to spend. Let's take 3 months to buy the servers, and then another 3 months to work out what we're doing. Now we're talking in weeks about providing solutions, and it's quite exciting actually to be able to do that now. So we need to be differentiating in our business, and processes and those solutions can help us differentiate. And this is another thing that ties into laptops and service and email. Not everyone can do that these days. So you need to be looking at where can we differentiate, where can we make that difference. I can't provide our business people a better laptop than any other company can. So it's it's commoditized. There's not a lot of differentiation going on in that space. So we're focusing our team on moving away from that, keeping the lights on, and into solutions and providing those systems. We have to be commercially responsible. That goes without saying, but sometimes IT has to play that overall security role and remind marketing and sales that they have to be conscious of where their information is and how they're using it. So that's security aspect, and we need to be commercially, not just wasting money and making sure we're getting our return. And the business readiness. So once again, is getting solutions out fast, ensuring they're ready to address their needs and drive the business forward. So I have a very, let's say, cynical look on IT over the years. I think we've failed up to now. We've spent a lot of money. We've had our 3 to 5 year plans, and we've put in some really big solutions that have cost a lot of money and not always delivered. My personal experience is in a previous company. We had 18 months to install a global portal, then we had to upgrade it, and then another year later we had to spend another big round of money to move it to a different platform, and then we had another application come along, and we had to then spend more money to build that application on that same platform. And it's just this endless cycle, and this is the traditional enterprise software world that we worked in. So we were happy to plan that out, have our 18-month plan to go live, and by the time we go live, the business has moved on 3 times, and we don't deliver what they need. And this is a trap I believe a lot of IT people and business has got in, and we really are failing to deliver. I was part of a business intelligence refresh, and traditional tools, we spent a couple of $1 million, and took a good 3 years to get a system into production, and by then completely missed the mark. CRM is another big topic on enterprise software, and I think it's got one of the highest failure rates of all enterprise applications, and we did experience that as well. So we got pretty good at keeping the lights on, and feeding the servers, but we lost focus on delivering business value. And we had all the excuses, and I'm sure you've all heard it in the boardroom and of why things failed, but we have to do better, and we have to change how we're looking at things and make sure we're not perpetuating the same issues. So having a look at performance management, I have to say I'm embarrassed a little bit to say that I presented this lovely diagram to a CEO about 5 years ago, and this was my grand plan, speaking to all the analysts and all the software companies of how we were going to tackle performance management. And if you look at the top, the questions haven't changed. How are we doing, why are we doing it, and why should we be doing this? And I thought this was a pretty awesome approach, and I convinced the CEO this was an awesome approach, and went about trying to make it happen. And when you look at the traditional technology stacks today, there's probably 3 or 4 different technologies that you need to make that picture work. And generally, you can get good at 1 or 2 of those things, but you can't complete the picture without a lot of money and a lot of resources. And what generally ends up happening is finance and sales basically go back to Excel because it all becomes too hard, and they start extracting data out of these million-dollar systems like Hyperion and Business Objects and Business Warehouse to make the analysis and reports and plans that they need to make, because the solutions never deliver. And it's very, very frustrating, and I lived through this, and I was very keen not to repeat that mistake. And at this company we got, and this was before Pabst, but we got maybe 70% there after a lot of time and money, but we could never complete that picture. So where's IT going wrong? And it's really, IT has become the Department of No. And what's happening in this space now is, while we can sit there and be the Department of No, the business, they're moving. They're moving forward regardless. And with the consumerization of IT now, what you're seeing is a lot of sales organizations from software vendors are selling direct to the business. That's their primary tactic now, to get software into companies. And that can be good, and my point of view is that we actually need to embrace that. And it's not spending a lot of money, but you need your CIOs and your IT folks to be in contact with your business people, having good relationships, so when that sales team comes knocking, they'll have the conversation, and instead of the IT going, no, you can't do that, they should be say, well, what problem are you trying to solve, and how can we help you move this forward? And you can end up with some of the best use cases out of this consumerization of software, because we're all asking why, and the business can actually go and solve this problem very, very cheaply and quickly, and a lot of your innovation can come out of the business if you can foster that and help it grow and not just be the Department of No. It really is bad for business if you have business people going off, getting everything they need. Ultimately, long term, you will waste money. There will be a higher expense, and if IT gets their way, you're not going to get any innovation. Everything's going to be locked down, and you might think you're saving money, but you're really not, because the business isn't moving forward. So it's really important that that we work together, and you can get things moving very quickly. So actionable action planning, and like I said, the business becoming comfortable with the technology, and that really is happening. And I think it's a good thing. I think IT can't be the center of everything, and we have to embrace that. There's a lot of smart people in the business, and we need to to help those people and foster the innovation. Solutions via the credit card. Now this is, like I said, this can be good or bad, and you need policies around this. But if someone goes out and buys 10 licenses for a couple $100 a month and they solve a problem, is that really a bad thing? Because maybe you can get some innovation out of that. But on the flip side, I had an experience where head of sales went out, bought Salesforce, dropped $100,000. Wasn't exactly a credit card purchase, but 90 days later he stopped using his solution because obviously it didn't work. And that was because we had bad relationships. He thought he'd listened to the salespeople, and they ran with it. So this is where we have to be in partnership and working together towards a solution. So how do we embrace cloud securely? And this is a solution where we are bringing together lots of cloud solutions and providing a single sign-on access. And we can now secure our cloud and bring on lots of different vendors very quickly. And there's two things. One is, like I said, we want to foster innovation. We don't want to lock everything down. But we still have that corporate responsibility. So we can bring our solutions into one single sign-on world. The portal people go into, they click on the solution, they get access securely, and then if they leave the company, and this is one of the biggest issues with cloud, is if you've got 10, 20, 30 different solutions, you can't be going into all those solutions to deactivate your users. And so in this solution here with single sign-on, someone leaves, they get deprovisioned out of our directory, and then they are cut off from all these applications they use. And I had the scenario where I literally had a president start with us back in February, and he was from one of the big boys and the big gorillas, and he showed me this lovely piece of paper, and he had literally 30 lines of systems that his assistant kept up to date with all his passwords. It was on his paper, in his folio that he carried with him. I was dumbfounded, and when I showed him how he could log in and get to our systems, he nearly, I won't say the expletives he used, he didn't believe me, and he has to just remember the one password, and he's actionable and getting results straight away. So there's a couple of things there. One is, let's embrace the cloud. Let's use the business people. If they have ideas, let's let them run with it. Give them some guidance. Give them some boundaries. Let's secure it. Make sure we're covering that side of it. Let's not block it. I think we can move forward a lot quicker if we embrace the cloud there. Oops, sorry. Okay, so the one area that we have been focusing on this last year is our performance management, and we've done a lot of different solutions in the last 12 months. And I selected performance management with our IT steering committee over some of what we'd call the foundational things like ERP, which we need to replace, and there's a few other big nasty things we have to do. But we focused on performance management, one, because we could get a relatively quick win, and it really is something that is ultimately driving the business. And our executive team aren't looking at ERP. They're not concerned with transactions. That's expected to happen, and we'll keep that happening. When we go to replace our ERP, we can simply plug that into this next solution. So we needed to break down our silos. We do a lot of top-down planning right now. We are going to move that out to more bottom-up, but for our purposes, top-down works. We have to break down the silos, and this is one of the biggest issues I believe in any company, is our sales and ops guys and our finance guys are all off doing what they need to do. They're driving their targets, and there's nothing gluing them together except maybe a conversation at the end of planning where someone says, well, why doesn't volume match shipments? And why doesn't the production planning match? And because everyone's off in their own worlds, we have 2 or 3 different systems that these people are using. So planning is a very big focus to us, bringing everyone onto the one platform. And what I saw in a lot of, actually most BI solutions, traditional BI solutions, they don't provide planning and input. That's always a separate module. If you use Cognos, you have to use Cognos Enterprise Planner. Hyperion has something that covers it. But there's always something extra you have to do, and they don't cover it in one solution. So I was very interested in the Tidemark solution because we can provide that similar input panel that they're looking at when they're looking at reports as well. So having everything integrated. We're building out, and this may sound like basics, but brand P&Ls, executive scorecards. These are basic things I came into the company and they kind of have, but it's the Director of Financial Planning who's pulling this together over 2 weeks with Excel, and he's pulling data out of 3 different systems. And that type of stuff really drives me crazy, because the next question was, for next year, he'd say, well, now I've got to add, I need 2 more headcount because I'm in this Excel world and, you need to do things faster and everything's modeled out. It was a very good conversation where I can say, look, let's look at systems, let's look at solutions like this. And straight away the light bulb went off. He said, so I can actually be, instead of entering data and crunching it and pulling it all together, I can actually be analyzing. He was quite excited about that. He can actually get to analysts, not just building reports. And he also doesn't need 2 extra headcount because the data is presented, so he doesn't need to be crunching all of that together. So it really is about bringing all this together and also attacking our mobile workforce. We have 85% of our users are mobile. They're out in the field. So what is the point of having a laptop with a VPN connection that you've got to find a Wi-Fi hotspot to jump on to get a report? That doesn't make sense these days, and I don't think it has for a long time. So mobile is a very big push for us. We have iPhones. We haven't gone iPad, but funnily enough, most of our people have iPads. And so we can now provide them what they need in the field, which is very important for us. And we have our senior team, our executives, looking at the same data that our field people are looking at. And that is extremely important because it's the fire drills we've had in the past, because sales looks at one area, one system, finance looks at another, and the owners look at something else. The fire drills are just quite crazy, and it really chews up a lot of time. So let's have a quick look at transformation. And this is really adding value very quickly, moving the business forward, and this is where cloud solutions help. You can't do this in a traditional space. So when I came on, this was November last year, we started a new file sharing solution, removed servers from branch offices, and now everyone immediately had access to their files on their mobile devices. We switched out from BlackBerries to iPhones. It's a long process because they have contracts, and so that's a little bit painful. We brought in bring your own device policy, so people can bring their own phone in. This is part of that consumerization move, and implemented mobile device management. So today, someone leaves, we can wipe their phone, and we're safe that our data is removed. Moved out a new email solution. We moved our on-premise solution. Like I said, we had the single sign-on. We moved in week 32, it's a couple of weeks back, we just moved our data center from an internal data center, saved about $500,000 in capital that we needed to upgrade, and moved that to rack space. And while all that's been happening, we've been looking at our CRM and analytics and performance management platform and implementing that as well. So it's a very quick transformation. That alone would take 2 years in the old space, and we're moving moving very quickly with the new technologies. So just quickly, we are looking at the rapid time to value. We want the line of business, the IT folks, and the Office of Finance really working together on the same solutions and providing that business value very quickly. So just some quick final thoughts. Change is here. We get a lot of resistance to change, but we have to move through that. We have to be adding value. In the IT space, we have to be adapting, because if we don't adapt, it's bad for business. IT becomes irrelevant. The business starts going off and doing all the things they think are right. And you're going to end up with a very fragmented and expensive solution that isn't integrated. And that's very bad for business. So around innovation, we really have to focus on the positive of that. Look at embracing what people are doing. They're doing it for a reason. So either we're not providing the solution they need, or maybe they need some counsel that, maybe they don't need it. But don't become the department of no. And, embrace the mobile space, embrace the cloud space. It can really help reduce capital, changes the conversation from capital investment, which was important to us, to operational expense. But more importantly, it gave us that transformation and enabled us to move things forward very quickly. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was great. I think for folks who are in finance and related areas, we just have absolutely no view into what's going on in the world of IT. And of course, we can't do our business in the world of finance and accounting without all of the tools and wonderful support that your area brings. So that's great to get that insight. Really appreciate that. At this point, we're going to do a quick transition here. We've got our first polling question open. Once again, this is required for folks who are here for CPE. Not required for others, but we'd love to see what you have to say. And as I said before, it's more statistical in nature. So at the end, when we get to the Q&A, when we have time, we'll go ahead and actually show everyone the results of this and the other two polling questions that will come in a little bit. And you'll be able to see how you stand relative to everyone else. Which is always fun, and then we'll ask the panelists what they think about what we're all saying. So another quick reminder, you can ask questions at any point in time, and we're happy to get to those to the best of our ability when we get to the Q&A portion of today's event. We're going to go ahead and hop down, and it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Maddox. Jennifer is a product expert at Tidemark. She has held a variety of roles with technology companies focused on delivering performance management. With her finance background, Jennifer brought early domain expertise to Tidemark, leading the initial product management effort and helping to design the initial Tidemark applications. Prior to Tidemark, Jennifer held a variety of roles at SAP, including marketing, CFO Center of Excellence, and solution engineering. Jennifer joined SAP as part of the Outlook Soft acquisition, where she held roles in solution engineering and implementation consulting. And she's here today to tell us a lot more about reimagining performance management at your company and sort of picking up on the application side where Ben left off there. Jennifer, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, John. I'm glad to be here. So I wanted to pick up a little bit where Ben left off. So he talked a little bit about how Pabst is looking to transform the business, and Tidemark being part of that strategy. And I wanted to just broaden the conversation a little bit to what we're hearing from our customers and from some of the early customers that we talked to as we were even founding the company. So when Tidemark was initially founded, we started by surveying over 100 customers. We went out, talked to them in person before we ever started developing any kind of a product, to understand what is it that people are really challenged by and what is it that they're looking for. And the result is something that aligns very closely to the things that Ben just talked about, which were things like we need apps that work for everyone from anywhere. So the world is not anymore, as you mentioned, go to a coffee shop, find a VPN connection, and get plugged in. You need to be able to get access from anywhere, from any device. People also were looking for solutions that allowed them to take action. So going from a world where, I have a static dashboard, and even that has been talked about, sometimes can be difficult to get just a view into what is happening. But then taking that view and going a little bit further and actually doing something about it proves to be challenging still for most organizations. So that was another key element that people were looking for. The other thing that I think we really saw as central, and something I'm going to talk about a little bit as I talk a little bit about how Tidemark is approaching the problem, is a way to enable better decisions. So Ben talked a lot about how spreadsheets still were getting used when he came on board at Pabst, and we see that through almost every customer engagement that we have. Spreadsheets are still very central to the way the business is being managed. Not to say there aren't other solutions in place or that people aren't leveraging other things, but just that spreadsheets still have a place, and that when it comes to making decisions in the business, it often becomes very difficult because things are disconnected. People can't really see all the information they need in order to make decisions the way they'd like to make them. So what that led to was, for Tidemark, a kind of a new approach. And we knew, obviously, starting the business when we did, that we wanted to focus on delivering a solution in the cloud. But we wanted to deliver a solution, as Ben talked about, that really could allow businesses to transform. And so what we started with was kind of this native cloud platform, which again was kind of an obvious decision somewhat, given that we were founded in 2010. It's very clear that that's where things were going. But we wanted to also focus on delivering apps in a way that people could easily configure. So flexibly, every customer that we have has a slightly different way of managing the business. The way they run their processes is different. And so we wanted to make sure that we built in the native capabilities for performance management right into the application layer. So those become things that can be configured versus things that are more of a tool-based approach where you have to start and you have to build from scratch every time you want to do something. And then we layer packaged applications on top. So things like metrics management, financial planning, operational planning that leverage the capabilities that we have built into the platform, and certainly customers can extend that beyond as well. So it gives you kind of a different view of the world. So if you take this and you contrast this with Ben's diagram of how they saw performance management, the one he was slightly embarrassed to admit he had presented several years ago, you see the differences, everything coming in under one umbrella, all the information running on a single platform, and then having, obviously, there still are different types of applications and different types of business processes that we want to be able to facilitate. So from there, I want to just jump into kind of talking a little bit about how those things start to come to life. So when you think about the types of applications, so as I mentioned, you have that application layer, and you have things like financial planning, metrics management, operational planning, and customers also have the ability to send that to their own types of applications that they would like to facilitate. So you get an understanding very quickly, and one of the other things that you'll notice about the application that we wanted to drive towards is a user experience that was familiar and easy for people. So it's kind of the disbelief that Ben highlighted when he was talking about, starting to roll out some of the solutions and saying, hey, you can go to this one place, you can log in, and with your single password you can get access to all these things. And people are like, oh, there's no way that's true. And we see a lot of the same reaction in the performance management space. It's, oh, there's no way that it can be easy to do the types of things that we want to do because the business is complex and we require a lot of sophistication. And it certainly is our belief that we can manage very complex scenarios, but do it in a way that still facilitates easy understanding on the part of the user. And that's one of the key things that we're driving with the application. Within each application, you have what really drives the business, and what we find really driving the business is processes. And when we talk about process, there's kind of it's one of the things that becomes quickly something that people can react very negatively to, because the connotation of process is, oh, it's some more structure, something that's going to put more rigid controls in place and not really allow us the flexibility we want. From our perspective, process is really something that businesses, you go through processes every day, whether they're structured or completely unstructured. There's a set of activities that businesses go through, and they are repeated. Some of them are repeated daily, some of them are repeated hourly, some happen on a quarterly or annual basis, like more forecasting planning scenarios tend to be. But the key thing is, how do you capture all the information that becomes part of that process and use it to drive decisions? So for example, in a forecasting process, you need all the information, collecting all this great information. How do you actually make sure that all of the information gets retained, not just the data, but the supporting context, so that 6 months from now when you want to look back and say, well, why do we make the decision we made 6 months ago? Why was that the forecast conclusion that we came to? You can easily look back and see, oh, here's all the supporting detail. And remember, we had this customer with this particular thing going on, and that's why the forecast was adjusted the way that it was. So there's this notion of, we from our perspective, we've tended to see business really focus process more on the people element. And what we wanted to do and what we're striving to do is bring data to the decision process as well. So data follows the process in the same way that people do. And what happens is a new kind of alignment where not only are people going through the process, the data goes through the process, the data is versioned according to the way that the process is being run, which results in a new level of visibility. And we talk about a lot, new scenarios being possible that were never possible before, and a lot of that is centered around this notion of having process at the center to provide context to decisions that are being made. When we looked at things like, Ben talked a little bit about how the world has gone mobile, and that was a key driver for them. And it's certainly something that we see as well. And we certainly had the benefit of, again, founding the company at an era where the first iPad was not yet out, but we knew it was coming. And so when you start to think about things like, how do you collect data? How do you collect input in a world that is not, sitting on a laptop or sitting at their desk? And what we found was the way that people need to interact with the information is different. You don't necessarily want a big grid of data on your iPad and go tapping cell by cell in order to make input. That probably would not be something that most people would want to do. So we really tried to think about things like, how do you enable input on a mobile device in a way that is very native to the device and very easy for the user. And so what it forced for us is this kind of a rethinking or reimagining, as we like to say, of how people would formulate things like forecasts and plans. And what you'll see here is this notion of kind of saying what you want to do. So we try to think about what are the types of things that, how do people come up with what they want to forecast? Well, they think about, I want to take what I did last year and I want to grow it by 10%. Or I want to take an annual number and I want to spread it based on a different product line or a different department. So we try to take those things and embed them right into the experience so that as you're formulating your input, you have all those things at your fingertips. You have a visual ability to kind of drag around and adjust the forecast that you want. And then those things can simply be applied. So what we're seeing with our customers and what we're hearing from the people that we talk to is that they want to move to a more frequently updated forecast kind of cycle, and they want to get operations more involved in the cycle because those are the people that are really closest to what's happening in the business. But in order to facilitate that, because of the nature of most of those positions, it has to be something that is very friendly to people that are on the road or out of the office a fair amount of the time. So, beside the transformation of how we collect data and how data is entered, we also wanted to look at how is analysis transformed. So how do we take from a world of everyone has seen a zillion dashboards and probably used many of them over the last many years. So we wanted to kind of think about how do we take the information that is most relevant and surface that to the top. And so what you'll see is something that is a little bit different in terms of the way both that we surface relevant information to what's causing variances in the business, as well as, and you're just getting a peek of it in the screen that you see there, all the supporting context around the information, which includes unstructured data. So the world has changed not only in a lot of the ways that have been described. The other thing that we're seeing is there's a lot more data that people want to be able to understand and analyze and correlate to their own internal performance that's coming from external sources. So it's coming from news feeds or Twitter feeds or Facebook engagement, depending on the nature of your business. And so how do you take all of that external information and start to use it to help, again, drive decisions that are happening in the business? And so what you see is kind of a bringing together, and we term this a performance panel, which is essentially intended to give you every piece of information that you need in a single place. So you don't have to go clicking around to 5 or 6 different places in order to answer a question about what's happening in the business why, and what should we do about it, which are kind of the three key questions that Ben kind of outlined as their what performance management is really trying to address. So in doing that, we also wanted to bring the way that people interact with the information to the forefront. So how do you not only deliver information that makes sense and that gives all the information in a single place, but how do you also allow people to take action on their own? So, you know, one of the things that Ben was talking about in terms of the business really kind of driving a lot of the solution decisions now, and one of the things that we have found that is right in line with that is users want to be able to do their own analysis. They want to be able to get at a point and see some interesting information and do something about it, whether that's collaborating with someone or simulating a new scenario or any of the things that might come out of that. And so the notion that we have that you're seeing here is that those things happen in the context of what you're doing. So you can very easily do in-context analysis or do collaboration, and it's in the context of what you're doing, so in the context of your process. So what that means for you is you don't have to go to a different place. You don't open a separate window to start to do collaboration. When you are collaborating about something, the people that you're collaborating with see the exact view that you see. So there's an implied sharing of context as you do these types of things. So again, we're trying to kind of think about the world in a little bit different way, which is how do we make some of the things that are, you know, key trends, obviously social and collaboration are key trends that we see. How can we make them relevant to performance management and the way that people really ultimately are already working, but do it in a way that kind of systematically captures the information so that it can be used in the future? So the big thing, I think, from our perspective as far as lessons learned, and you've kind of heard, this again kind of dovetails on what Ben talked about, is in order to really transform the business and in order to get there, you really have to reimagine the way that you go about managing performance. So the way businesses run has changed. We talked a lot about those things. Software vendors now are selling to the business. We're seeing mobile devices that are prevalent and, you know, much less under the control of IT than they ever have been in the past. And the key thing, and Ben talked a little bit about this as well, you can't get where you want to go and you can't keep up with those things by trying to take technology that wasn't designed for those things in mind and just apply it to a new set of problems. And I think that's the #1 thing that we've seen in terms of feedback from our customers. And so the result of that is technology becomes an enabler. So once you kind of embrace new technology, not only do you get something that's updated and all the normal benefits, but you now have an enabler of scenarios that you just couldn't do before. And Ben talked about that in terms of even the timeline. So taking something that in the past would have been a 3 to 5 year kind of roadmap and squashing it into under 18 months. And it's kind of the path that we see many customers wanting to do is they know they need to transform, they know they need to do something, but they don't have time to go through the traditional approach to implementing software. So the big outcome of that for us that we see is that you really do have to rethink in order to get kind of where you want to go, and in order to really transform the business, you have to start to rethink about what are the things that are enabling the business to run, what are the things that are enabling us to manage our performance, and then make sure that whatever those things are, they support ultimately the goals that you're trying to deliver. And with that, John, I will turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And at this point, let's go ahead and get those other 2 polling questions going. And then we'll see what kind of time we have for a few questions at that point. Thanks, everyone. You can see right now we've just launched the 2nd polling question. The 2nd of 3 will be the other one immediately following that. I will leave this open for about 30 seconds. Very quick and simple question there, as you can see. And then we'll get to your questions. So a reminder, please ask questions if you have any at this point using the question area of your GoToWebinar control panel. And we will get to those in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and give about 5 more seconds for answering this poll question, then we'll just do a quick change over to the next one. So I've closed that one out. We're opening the other one. And see that any moment now. There you go. So I'll one other very quick reminder here. When we shut down this webinar, you'll be presented with a quick survey. We appreciate your taking that. We always want to know what we can do better the next time. So the good, the bad, the ugly, let us know. And just give us 60 seconds, please, to answer that survey. Also, make it very easy if you want to talk to today's speakers or be connected with today's speakers or the sponsor type mark of today's event. You can indicate that simply via checking the boxes in the survey, and that would be great. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close down the third of these polls here, and we're going to go and actually turn it around really quickly and take a look at the poll results and see where everyone stood as promised. So I'm going to go ahead and put out the first poll results right now. And the question was, where does or would your funding for an analytics program come from? It's always interesting to see how folks are getting these funded. So the majority from a new budget request, no surprise. Think budget from another project is 15%, and then other. So I think that's probably not terribly surprising. Most of these are happening during the regular course of the planning process, and people are getting in front of these. Ben, is this how it works at Pabst, or is this a sort of well planned out along a timeline event for you?
I wouldn't say it's well planned out, but a lot of it is new budget requests for us as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go ahead and pop the second question out. And that question, as you recall, was, let's see, let's update our screen here. Okay, how does your organization deliver business insights to decision makers today? And we have a lot of mid and large size companies on this call, and this never ceases to amaze me. Jennifer, is this what you would have expected?
Definitely, and I kind of probably hinted and maybe gave this away as part of my notes. But yeah, definitely we see even for organizations that have other things in place. So even when they do have a ClickTech or Tableau or even something like a Business Objects or Cognos, what ends up happening generally that we see is the information always ends up in Excel before it goes to the final decision makers. So that's extremely in line with what we see as well.
And why do you think that is? What have you guys seen? Is that the formatting doesn't work out of those tools, or all of the analysis isn't quite done, so you've got to dump the info to Excel and then continue massaging it? I mean, what is it that drives this level of spreadsheet use?
I think it's a couple things. So I think part of it is that all the data that they need to put the analysis together is not in one place. So what ends up happening is they get most of it, and then it gets dumped into Excel, and then they add on the supplemental pieces. We see that very commonly. And sometimes the supplemental pieces are simple things like comments that they can't really capture and supply with the analysis. The second thing I think is it is the flexibility factor. So it's how do I make it look exactly the way my CFO wants to see it, because they have a very specific look in mind, and it's something that I think there's a comfort factor in knowing that I can get that in Excel and it'll take me an hour, and for me to do it somewhere else it might be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, and I think that probably speaks right to this last polling question here. Top reasons that folks are here today to learn more about BI. The top item is it takes my company too much time to do basic analysis. Say nothing about I want to know how to get useful data from our systems. Certainly a number of critical items there. Well, I'm glad we're here and able to provide some of that. Why don't we go ahead now and get into a couple of quick questions while we still have some time. So the first question is, and this is directed to Ben, how do you at Pabst, how are the new projects and technologies being funded at Pabst, especially with regards to the finance and accounting area, and how supportive or what is the reaction from the finance organization and from the business with your new initiatives?
Yeah, so I had two approaches. The first approach we've been working on is funding all new operational expense by cutting some other operational expense, and so funding it from without any increases in budget. And we've been reasonably successful with that. There was a lot of things I could carve out that were just not needed anymore. Little example is, moving to rack space. It's not cheap, but I immediately removed some perpetual licensing that I had to be spending money on, so I could fund a new 24/7 data center operation by using funds that we were already spending on a data center. I could also reduce headcount by doing that, so we gained a lot with very, very minimal increase in operational expense. The same with my move to Tidemark. I've actually removed 2 other systems that I needed to support and switched a licensing fee from a system that wasn't delivering what we needed into this solution. So we're pretty much neutral on our cost for that. The other approach to the transformation, we did increase costs in certain areas, but it's been minimal. Anyone who's in the private equity space will know how they view money, and so we are really trying to fund as much as we can, and we've been pretty successful so far. So it's augmenting IT. I'm moving people from engineers, which I've replaced some engineers, to business analysts, project management, looking at execution, and changing the money from keeping the lights on in our internal systems to providing the software as a service.
That sounds fantastic. Great work. Can you take a moment and just comment on your relationship or IT's relationship with the Office of the CFO? And it sounds like you've got a great relationship. You've obviously transformed that organization. You're providing value to the Office of the CFO. I think in many organizations, the finance organization and IT are frequently at loggerheads. How have you managed to get away from that?
Yeah, so we are a work in progress, and at the CFO level, it's been a very good relationship because everything I've done makes sense. It makes business sense, makes commercial sense, and financial sense.
Yeah.
There has to be a commitment to investing, and as part of the transformation, there are things that we have to still keep the lights on, and we have to up our costs a little bit, but long term, you can see the return, and we're seeing that business value. So they've been very open to it. In our space, especially in the capital, not having to replace capital equipment is attractive to this organization, and so that's been a very good conversation not to have,
right.
which is good. So, yeah, down at the accounting level, the accounting folks are pretty resistant to change, and we have had a lot of discussions about.
Careful, that's hitting close to home here.
No, I'm sorry, but it's been very interesting because when I dug into it, we had some really good workshops that were very, very open, and they just saw this ability to take all this junk that they were doing and improve it in a system. And so while the initial it was a little cold, I have to say, it wasn't a warm reception. Once we got into it, it was a very good relationship. So we still have a lot to do in that space, but we're moving forward.
Great. Wonderful. And with that, and to be respectful of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and draw this to a close. I have another quick slide or two. But the first thing I want to do is to thank certainly Ben and Jennifer for your time today and your insight. It's always great to hear from folks who are living this in the trenches, and great to get that information. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No problems. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Also, of course, a couple of items that I've mentioned already. A short survey. As soon as I shut down this webinar, you'll all be presented with that. We appreciate you taking just a minute to take that survey and let us know what we can be doing to do better the next time, and also if we can help connect you with today's speakers or the sponsor. We'd be happy to. If you have any questions about CPE credit, you can see an email for Tanya Walsh at the bottom of the screen. She'll be more than happy to help you out there. Finally, of course, a thanks to our great sponsor, Tidemark. Without them and folks like them, we wouldn't be able to do everything we do at Performative, and all for free for the users. So thanks for attending today, folks. We know how busy you all are, and we really hope to see you again at another Performative event or online at performative.com. And with that, I will go ahead and close out the webinar. Everyone have a wonderful rest of the week, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care.